you're in control of your day from the moment you wake up, not other people, right?
Yep. I'm intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't just roll through anything. Waking up in the morning, I have that routine. I'm intentional. The night before, I'm already planning out what I'm going to do. So I already know.
What's up, guys? It's your friend Chris Donaldson here. Welcome to another edition of the Office Hours podcast. On this episode, we're going to be talking about managing your time, getting stuff done, being efficient, and getting rid of anything that doesn't serve your ultimate goal. So in order to do that, I am super excited to introduce this week's guest, Mr. Mike C-Roc. And let me see if I get the last name right. Ciorrocco. How'd I do?
That's pretty good. Ciorrocco.
Ciorrocco. See, I knew I was going to mess it up.
You got it. You tried too hard.
Well, effort always wins, right? So C-Roc, as he's known, is a mortgage broker, originator. He knows the lending business, but really more than anything else, he's a businessman, just like you and just like me. And we met at a speaking training course not that long ago. And actually, before we even get to the rest of this stuff, Mike, let me ask you, how's the golf game, man?
I don't know who's listening to this phone call. I got some guys that we play money for, so I want to be careful. I did have six birdies the last round. I won't tell you the score though. 6
birdies, dude. That's intense. So if you didn't shoot under par, then that means you had a messed up rest of the holes.
Yeah.
Or
True.
You did, and
True.
You don't want your buddies to know.
True. No, I had 3 double bogeys too, so it was a 75. So
that's good, man. That's good.
Yeah.
I had an eagle, but then I had also some doubles. I had one of the weirdest things I've ever had. I had bookends, par 5, so number 1 and number 9. And I was in a tournament, and I made a double on my first hole of the day, par 5, then eagled number 9. So they equaled out to even par on the 9, but it's not exactly how you're supposed to do it.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Baby steps, man. Baby steps. But
right.
Hey, let me clarify something. I actually have 6 mortgage branches that I run with some best friends I grew up with. So I don't originate loans anymore. I used to, but I have an awesome team of almost 30 employees. So
that's awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you clarifying that because we were going to get into that a little bit. In fact, the first question I had for you, I think I've asked before, but what led you to the mortgage business in the first place, right? Because there's all these, under the Donaldson umbrella, as an example, you could be a real estate agent, a mortgage lender, get into insurance, appraisal. There's all these things that are surrounded in this awesome industry. So why was it mortgage lending for you as opposed to being an agent, real estate agent?
Yeah. So I was in home sales from 1998 to about 2004 or 5. Decided to get out of that. Was the old close them while you're there type sales.
Yeah.
And just got wore out from it. I was driving all over the creation. But I got into real estate first, got my real estate license, was a top producing real estate agent in Delaware, soon right out of the gates. And I just got tired of running around showing people houses. It just wasn't for me. And my best friend I grew up with, Chris Short, was a mortgage loan officer, and he started managing a group of loan officers. And I was sending him my business. And I just said to him one day, man, hey, listen, I want to try to get in that mortgage business. What's going on?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, don't do that, man, because I was one of his top referral partners. So that's how it started. And I just went with it. And the first year I just took off. I used all my sales training and experience, and that teamed up with the real estate knowledge and just blew it up from there. So
that's really interesting, man. Give me the time frame on when you talked to your buddy Chris and you switched from being a real estate agent to getting mortgage lending. What was the time frame?
When I talked to him, probably within a month. I mean, I usually take action pretty quickly. When I talked to him, I would say I already had my mind made up, and it was just a matter of telling him what was going to happen. He was kind of nervous because when you get into anything that's 100% commission, he didn't want that on his shoulders. But I'd already been in 100% commission, make it happen attitude, and I had no doubt. And I was going to actually, for 5 years, I drove an hour and a half each way to the office. And I had a baby on the way. So, I mean, it was hey, whatever it takes, get it done. And
right. The motivation was easy, as they say. The work is not always easy, but the motivation to get it done was, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I love it. What year was that? Like, was that during the mortgage craziness?
Yeah, it was actually right before it, late 2006.
That's right.
And, despite all that, I can tell you this, that every year since then, I've made more money every year since 2006. That's always been something that I was taught by a business mentor of mine back in the day. Every year, try to do better than the year before, which makes common sense. But a lot of people don't focus on that. So
that's right.
Even through the downturn, we just kept going. Just because we try to create, it's something that we hear a lot from our mentor Grant, right? Make your own economy. Don't rely on the outside. And so that crash was happening, and we just had to shift and work maybe a little harder than we were to overcome that. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we really connected on. I remember talking with you about that and our experience of managing through the recession, because obviously our school was completely centered around real estate, mortgage lending, and appraisal. They were all dead in 2008, 2009. I learned everything I need to know about myself as a businessman and as an entrepreneur through that time, and it served me really well because we did the same thing. We grew, and I think that's part of what I wanted to talk to you about was that I think you really devised, and you have some certain points on, look, these are the things that I get done every day, or this is why I get these things done. These are how I set my days up. And I really kind of wanted to share that with our audience and see if I can learn a thing or two that maybe I can implement into my stuff. Because the one thing that I found through that process was that I needed to completely relook at how I managed time, how I dealt with time, how I blocked things out, what I prioritized and what I didn't. I mean, that entire process was a learning curve for me, but it's made all the difference in the world. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, give me some of the principles. Now that you're running this company, you're managing a lot of people, you've got operations, you ran through the recession. What are some principles that you stick to as far as your time and getting things done?
Well, first of all, you have to have a reason, right? Because if you don't have a reason behind it, you're not going to do it, and you're not going to do it consistently, which is important, right? So the reason behind mine is I don't know if it's clinically proven anxiety or anything like that, but I just have an itch to get something done and keep moving. Like I always am go, 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 right? So that itch, it keeps me in a situation where if I don't structure things properly, or if I don't act proactively, I'm in a reactive mode, it doesn't work well with me. And I don't think it works well with anybody, but especially maybe because I have that I call it a fire inside of me. That's the cause of it for me figuring this thing out, because otherwise, man, I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess, and I'm not pleasant to be around at those moments. So I'm a happy guy most of the time, but that's if I keep my stuff straight. So there's why I do it and the purpose behind it. But the first and foremost thing is that you got to wake up early in the morning. I know everybody's heard some of this stuff is not brain science, but waking up early, man, the whole thing. And one of the little tools I use is I want to see the sunrise every morning, because out my window, the back of my house, it's right off the ocean, and I can see a different painting every day, right? So I use that as my motivation, first of all, to get up. So if I don't feel like getting out of bed when I first wake up at, like, let's say it's 5:15, 5:30, I'm like, oh man, I got to hurry up and get up because I got to get my camera out and take a picture. And if anybody follows me on Instagram, you'll see if I have what do you call it? The album or whatever of sunrises. And every morning, man, it's a different picture. So that's awesome. One thing that I focus on to get my butt out of bed. And then once I do that and get that vision in my head that I accomplish, that's my first win of the day, right? So then I'm on pace to win everything I do, because I'm 1-0 at that point, right?
Love it.
So waking up early, there's no distractions. It's so quiet. If you have kids, they're in bed still. The wife's in bed. There's nothing going on, man. And I like that because I can get stuff done at that moment. I can pray. I have a gratitude moment. You've heard all this stuff before, but I follow through with it. I can write my goals down. I can watch my Cardone University videos. Little plug for Grant. And then I can go through my planning of my day at that point.
Yeah.
No distractions, man. So, and the alternative to that is staying up late, laying in bed and watching Game of Thrones or some Netflix and binging, right? Yeah. And that's the alternative. But if you wake up at the 5:15, 5:30, you have you only have so much energy. So you probably pass out at 8:30, 9 o'clock, right? You're sleeping during that binge watching time. Other people are binge watching. You're getting up at 5:30 while everybody else is still laying in bed on their lazy butts, and you're getting stuff done. So that's the first thing that I really focus on.
I think that's super important. You actually brought up a few things that I want clarification on. So first of all, I think that when people are always like, well, you always hear this and you always see this and people always say that, I have a kind of a phrase on that. It's like cliches are cliches for a reason. True. Or patterns for a reason. So it's like, you shouldn't feel bad that everybody says you should wake up early. Well, shit, it's because it works. Right. And that's what successful people do. Yeah. So like, stop listening and start doing. And so I think that you're just another character in the long timeline of Earth that has proven that type of thing, this is what humans, what we strive to do. So you should never feel bad about that, right? It's like True. Eating healthy and exercising, you're going to be in better shape. Well, no shit. Like that's how it works.
That's true.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. Thank you for that positive reinforcement.
Yeah, dude. Like you should never feel bad about that. In fact, it's one of the things that absolutely led to a transformation for me because I was out of shape. I was not doing well. I was stressed out. The recession really took a toll on me. And one of the things that I did was start waking up super early and working out before I got to the office. That was just one of the many steps. But like, man, it's super important. I do want clarification because I'm sure people are curious. Like I am mercurial against my cell phone first thing in the morning. Like I don't want anything to do with it because the only thing that's in there are other people's problems. So it's really just a clarification point for me. When you grab your phone, you go take that picture to get the sunrise on Instagram. Do you ever find that there's distractions in there? Text messages, other people's emails, that kind of thing early? How do you handle that?
Yeah.
Kind of doing both.
The first thing I do before I look at anything is I pop the camera on, period. End of story. So I pop the camera on. That keeps me from looking at that stuff. But also on social media, I really try. I don't scroll much on Facebook. I used to. I went through a phase, but it's just not much to it except if you're liking things just to get some attention back to your page or something.
Yeah.
I don't like to scroll too much on Facebook. Now Instagram's a different story. On Instagram, I try to follow people that put out good content, that make you happy. It's fun stuff, that kind of thing. I try to stay away from all that negative stuff. It's definitely important what you watch, watch and what you put in your brain. But yeah, I feel you. I try not to, for the most part. I'll be honest. I do sometimes fall into that.
Right.
But I have a pretty good routine in the mornings.
Yeah, no, I think that's the big key is that number one, we're not all perfect. It's a constant pursuit. So like not sitting around and dwelling, oh my gosh, I got caught in my emails for 15 minutes. My day's a failure. Like understanding that I have a routine. Sometimes I can get sidetracked, but tomorrow I can get right back on it.
Exactly.
But yeah, the other part is a routine in general. So in other words, you're in control of your day from the moment you wake up, not other people, right?
Yep. That's key. So one thing I always make sure is I'm intentional. Mm-hmm. So I don't just roll through anything. So waking up in the morning, I have that routine. I'm intentional. The night before, I'm already planning out what I'm going to do. So I already know. If it's a day that I'm going to hit the gym, or if it's a day that I'm going to take a rest break, or if I'm going to hit golf balls in the morning, whatever it is in the morning, I always do something before I go to the office physically. But I already know. I'm intentional. I don't get up and just react to whatever's happening that day. Yeah. Period. It doesn't happen. I used to do that back in the day. Nothing good comes from it. And that's being intentional, man. Be intentional.
Yeah.
And you will see a huge difference in your results.
Dude, no question. And I definitely like the fact that you think about it the night before. So you're not waking up in the morning going, okay, I need to make a plan for the day. Like you've already thought it through at least a little bit, X, Y, and Z tomorrow. And that probably helps you sleep better. You can get right to it in the morning. You've thought it through just at least a little bit. I mean, and what does that take? 5 minutes?
It literally does. People make it too big a deal about it as far as how long it's going to take, or I can't do it because of this reason, and they feed themselves all this BS in their head, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't believe myself if I start that. So like if you think about this, I know it's kind of funny, but I got a little guy in my head. There's two little men in there, and I try to feed that positive guy, right? And strengthen that guy, and then the little guy, I always put him down, man. Yeah, I'm not listening to you, dude. So shut your mouth. That's how I roll, man. It's funny, and I teach my kids this stuff, man. Feed that positive, man, and knock out the negative, man. So you can feed yourself all that BS, but in the morning, man, or nighttime, writing plan down, writing goals down in the nighttime, in the morning time, reaffirm those goals every single morning. And even, I tell my people this all the time, and we have a text chain for our group every morning. Hey, did you write your goals down? I'm holding people accountable constantly to the point where I feel like I'm being a D, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but
a mean guy. Yeah.
A mean guy. Right. And I'm like, man, should I take it this far? Yeah. But at the end of the day, if I don't, it's coming from a place in my heart where I know I'm trying to get the best out of people.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. And some people can't do it themselves. So I really wish that I had somebody like that in my life to do that to me. And, I'm just trying to be that person for those people coming from a good place, but it is hard because sometimes, to give you an example today, I had one of our employees giving me reasons why he didn't accomplish something. Mm-hmm. And it was all BS, man. Total. Yeah. Like everybody in our office is dealing with the same thing outside the office that this guy was talking about. I said, dude, listen, save time, save your breath. I care about you. I love you. I'll do anything for you. But don't feed me that line of BS. Don't feed yourself that line of BS. Yeah. Get the stuff done, man. Commit. And so, that's.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit because I love where, I had a similar conversation, which I do all the time. Me and you are now in leadership positions, which, by the way, I think everybody should hopefully hear that we got to this point by doing all the hard little things over time that we didn't get recognition for, that maybe didn't get results, that consistent return on the investment in ourselves, in setting up routines. Like I'm sure, Mike, you have stories about things that you tried that didn't work, things that you've done that completely failed. We have to learn along the way. But today, as I do every day, I was doing the same thing with one of our customer service reps. Now, we literally have online digital training that they can watch on how to handle a phone call, what to do every time, not like to where they're scripted on every word, but just general methods. Like when a customer calls, pull up their profile in the CRM so that you have context on them as you're talking to them.
Right.
I just watched her 3 calls in a row not do it. She literally had just done the training yesterday.
Yeah.
And I watched her 3 calls in a row. So it's my job to keep her accountable. There's a reason why we do these things. Why are you watching the training? You're being reinforced on what you know, but then you're not doing it. So I simply, and that's a skill that's got to be learned, right? Because it's hard because we always want to be the nice guy, but we're not doing them a favor if we let them go.
Exactly. And I'll even have little digs thrown at me. He's the coach. He thinks everybody should do it the way he does things.
Uh-huh.
And of course, and it's so easy to fall into like, you know what, man, maybe I'm being too hard or maybe I am being like too much of a coach. I don't know. But then when I started, the thing that changed everything was when I started, if I heard that from someone, or if I heard somebody throwing a little dig, or if I heard somebody hating on me or anything, and it goes on social media stuff or whatever, I start doing it harder. I really push into it at that point when they say that, and then that teaches them not to say that if they don't want it that way. So, but it works, and then it really intensifies their production results actually. And I'm actually surprised by it over the years because I do feel like I was I'm being hard sometimes, and we'll have a conversation with someone, and I'll be like, man, was I too hard on them? Maybe. But then I see the results come from, and I'm like, oh shoot, good thing I did it. So it works, man.
It definitely does. And I think there's something I know about you that I want to make sure that you share also, is that I bet you have set these expectations from the moment you brought them on board so that there should be no surprises as to what you expect from them. Yep. Therefore, when you hold them accountable, look, you knew from day one when we brought you this organization, this is what's expected, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about time management. For example, in our business in the mortgage industry, and it goes for any sales, you got to spend a lot of time prospecting.
Yeah.
And people will do whatever they can to put something else in the way of prospecting because there's so much rejection with it. Probably, I think that's what it is. But, we're talking about time management and expectations. We're constantly, every day I'm talking about, hey guys, make your agent calls, make your referral partner calls. Hey, I need 10 calls right now. I need 10 calls right now. How fast can you make 10 calls? Constantly, to the point where I'm just so sick of saying it. but I have to keep doing it. And when I do it, it works. So expectations not being met, you gotta break it for yourself and for anybody else. You gotta like catch it early and put your foot down quick. Now I've been in a place before where I had somebody that's getting results from something, right? But they're not doing the stuff that we need them to do. Whether it's the CRM stuff you were talking about, whether they're treating people right or following up with people. And we're like, man, if we let them go, we may lose that, maybe they're doing 3 or 4 loans or something. We may lose that 3 or 4 loans. And we let them stay too long. And every single time, and I don't do this anymore, I cut them quick, but every single time we've let someone go, our business is skyrocketed. Because what we forgot to think about is all the business that we might not have been getting from them doing the job the right way. So that net number is what matters, not the couple loans that they were doing or 3, 4 loans that they were doing.
Or the time that managing their improper behavior was taken away from the things that grow the business.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a game changer, man, right there.
It really is. And I think, listen, there's a lot of people that are going, yeah, all that sounds great, but I'm the solopreneur, right? I'm the solo mortgage broker. I'm the single real estate agent. I'm the one working on my own. So how does this stuff help me? And I think that kind of bringing it back for a second, you had built a lot of things that made you successful, that turned you into the leader that's building the company that you're still growing, by the way, that I know, which is a compliment to you to this day. I want to circle back to the reason, because I think a lot of people hear stuff. And I just want to have a real conversation with you about things like goals, reasons. People see like books that say start with why, but they don't really understand what it actually means. And so for me, I just want to say that like when I'm teaching people, it's coming from what I learned myself and what was important to me, and that I'm not going to make the calls. I'm not going to show up. I'm not going to do all the little things that I don't want to do that need to be done to reach the next level of my potential or the business or anything else if I don't understand what the reason is behind it. What am I trying to ultimately accomplish? Who am I trying to take care of? What is it that I want? Like if you roll into an office and you don't have an end game, it's going to be really hard for you to get it. Like if you don't know what you want, how are you going to get it? So for me, it's a no-brainer, but let me hear your take on that. That's my take on it.
All right. So first of all, my fire was lit when I was 11 years old. Like a lot of people, my parents were split up. I never knew my parents together. And I lived with my dad for about 3 years and broke my mom's heart going there. But there was a lot of mental and physical abuse during that period of time. And I was 11 years old. I had maturity enough to know I had enough. So one day I came home from school and I told my dad, or I didn't tell him, my dad told me, get in your room. And I was like, oh boy, because I always walked on eggshells at that point. I sat on my bed and my dad came in to me and had a legal envelope in his hand. He said, what is that? Or what is this? And I said, I don't know. And apparently the court had sent papers from my mom that said that I wanted to move back with my mom for custody. And I'm 11 years old, keep in mind.
Right.
And he was really, really irritated. Now, I looked up to my dad, man. He was my hero, just like a lot of kids. My dad always had a wad of $100 bills in his pocket. He was a mason, had his own business, and was very successful. I always looked up to him. And at a young age, that money mattered to me. I thought that was like one of the most important things. And that's how he took care of us too, right?
Right.
So he took that out of his pocket, that thing that I always looked up to him for, peeled a $100 bill off, crumpled it up, and threw it at me, and said, "Hey, here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day." And I'm 11 years old at that moment, and that right there, I always look back to that moment, that fire that was lit right there. I can't describe it. It's hard to put it into words, but when you're a kid and that happens to you, and your hero tells you something like that. Two things can happen. You can go down a road where you play this victim role, right?
Yep.
And get into the wrong crowds and use that as your excuse not to be successful the rest of your life, right?
100%.
I didn't choose it that way. I don't know why at that moment. I don't know why I chose that way. I can't look back and figure out the reasons, but I chose a road that I'm not going to let him win. I'm going to prove him wrong. And that lit a fire under me. And I also thought to myself at that age too, like, I can't be the only one going through this. I felt so alone at that moment, but I can't be the only one. So I said to myself, I'm going to find other people that have gone through this, I'm going to help lift them up and show them what I did and the route that I took when that happened to me. So that's lit a fire. So I always use this phrase, and you'll see it on my social media a lot, is what are you made of?
Mm-hmm.
I like to refer back to things that have happened in my past, and that particular moment. There's other things as well, but that particular moment, other people, everybody has a story, right? Everybody has that one thing or multiple things that they can look back on and really dig deep into it and see what that thing has done to them, to use it as a victor thing instead of a victim, where they can rise from it and use it to, one, be successful, two, to help other people that have gone through it as well. So that's my why. I told realtors that I teach, I tell them that story. I tell my people that story. And I always want to encourage them to find their thing that, they say it's the why, but I like to talk about the event. What are you made of?
Yeah.
What are you really made of? And so,
well, Mike,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, first of all, part of me is, and I know that you would reject this as like, man, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But the other part of me that's more important is how clear and how amazingly transformative your emotional state was, that you could still remember it like it was yesterday. And I think there's so many people, like I grew up in a divorced family. There's a lot of, 50% of marriages in divorce. There's so many people that have single parents, and they're lucky to have a parent at all. There's always somebody that's story is worse, always somebody that's better. But dude, that's your movie. And nobody wants to watch a movie where the hero's ascension is just easy from the beginning, right? It's always way more exciting when something happens, because you have to have that event to figure out what you're made of. I love the way that you put that. And so many people have that stuff, and they get stuck in it, right? It's like, this happened to me, not that it just happened. Or this happened because of me, not that, it just happened. I mean, in New Orleans, as an example, not near as personal and family oriented, but man, Hurricane Katrina affected a lot of people. Well, that is a long time ago now. That's 14 years ago, 15 years ago, and some people are still stuck there, as if this one hurricane event defines my life, and now nothing will ever be good again. It's sad when there are also so many huge businesses, wealthy people, incredible things that have come out of that event because people saw the opportunity in it.
Yeah, so look at the Saints.
Yeah,
the way the Saints handled it. Yeah.
Bingo. I mean, look, it was a little dicey there for a minute, but then look at the turnaround, look at the connection that the city and the team and all of that. But yeah, that's just, so we all have those things. And I can really identify with your story, coming from a divorced family, remembering those kind of things that can happen. And, it's interesting to me that you thought way back then, you're like, man, I'm not going to be a victim. This is just not going to be my thing. This is not going to be my story. That voice, I worry that too many people ignore it when it's in there, right? That guy in there is telling you, like, man, you're capable of more. You can do more. And we snuff it out. We feed it with the other one, right? With the angel of the devil on the shoulder, by the way, that's why that was in all the cartoons. Because what you described, we all have that in us, right?
I really want to try to help people amplify that voice but use it in that right direction. And that's really something that I wake up every morning trying to do. And I've been doing it for our people for a while. Then I started expanding out to real estate agents and trying to help them as well, because I know if I help first in the real estate agents' lives and business, that I know that's going to return and help our business in the long run. But help first mentality. And so then now I'm really trying to push out and go beyond that as well. Because I want people to really find that voice. Don't, like you said, don't suppress it, but use it in the right manner.
Well, that reason is so strong that it's leading you there, right? Because your reason is so much more than the money or the size of your company or what you can provide your family in terms of physical things. And I think that having monetary goals, I bet you have them internally as part of your company. You've got
without a doubt, man.
You have to,
without a doubt,
right? But that reason leads to that, which is so much more important. And so money is on the table. I know that you can appreciate that here in office hours. We talk about money. I'm not afraid of it. We'll talk specifics. Like we don't avoid it because it's such an important topic for so many of these business people. But the other side is is that it really does have to be about something besides that money, what it's going to bring to you, what it's going to do for you, what it's going to do for others, what it can do for your family. Man, that's really powerful. So I hope people are picking this up. I hope that you're hearing like the things that are hard to do in business. Like, Mike, give me an example of something you have to do every day that you don't want to do, that you don't like doing, that you hate doing, but you do it every day because you know it leads to success.
I hate sitting in the office at my desk and going through emails and watching over things to see if things are done right, and then having to call people out.
Yeah.
Some people might think I like doing that. Some of the people are like, man, he gets off of it. I don't like doing that, but it leads to correction, reflect and correct. I'm constantly reflecting and correcting, which, we talked about a lot of people listening may be solo on their own, which I find, you should only be in a solo act for so long because, you can't really accomplish big things without a team.
That's right.
Period. I don't, some people think they can. I just, scaling is something that I go after. And so a lot of people listen solo. One thing about this though, is you got to do things you don't like. Yeah. And until you find, like, let's say you don't like people, I have a real estate friend of mine that was a realtor by himself. And he said, I just can't, I can't imagine working with someone else, man. It's not me. But he had the ability, and I saw it in him and the systems that he had in place to be able to grow a big company. And we were golfing one day, and I'm like, man, you gotta try to find some teammates, man. Build a team. Yeah. I can help you. And 3 weeks later, we're on a golf course. He said, hey, man, I got a meeting with so-and-so. And it was one after the other, and he started building this team. Perfect. And so I think anybody, by the way, solo, you got to start thinking, unless you're just doing this for a hobby and you don't like money, right, and you don't want to really be successful, start thinking about figuring out either you need to join a team where there's a leader that's going to hold you accountable, or you need to start scaling and grabbing, an assistant here, maybe another real estate agent, and start growing. Because if you're not growing, man, I'm going to tell you right now, and we know where this comes from. If you're not growing and constantly going up, eventually gravity's going to grab you and start pulling you down. So, but anyway, back to what I don't like doing is I don't like constantly having to. I feel like babysitting sometimes. It's like that, I guess. But it's just it's just necessary.
But you do it.
Yeah, I got to do it.
We don't like paying taxes, but we do it. Right? And the more taxes we pay, the more successful we are.
That's a good problem. Yeah.
I think that's such great advice, Mike. Like so many new, whether it's the real estate industry, the mortgage industry, they come out of our schools, our academies, our training, and they always talk about the stuff that they don't want to do. And I'm always looking at them, I'm going, okay, and? Like, so what do you want to do? Oh, well, I want to make money. Okay, so let's back up a step. You're going to have to do things that you don't like a lot. And think about, they go on YouTube, right? So part of the reason I started Office Hours originally, Mike, is it was a live YouTube show. I just pressed live, and I did this show live the first 30 times I did it for two reasons. One, I was scared of YouTube because too many people were telling me that they learned how to do their job on YouTube. And I was like, what is the stuff that they're consuming on YouTube? Like, they are figuring out how to run their business, and we don't even know who these people are. So I wanted to have a channel that with real substance. The second was you can't fake it when you're live. Because I knew that if I press record and people are asking me questions, there's no script, there's no preparation, and I could just lean in like we're talking about. But a lot of times they would go on YouTube, they say, well, all these motivational things, they say, do what you love. And I'm like, you should. But that doesn't mean that every piece of it is something that you enjoy. Like you just brought up my hometown Saints. Drew Brees, I'm sure, loves winning football games. Right. He doesn't love every minute of training camp that they're in right now in 95-degree heat in July in New Orleans. I bet he doesn't love that, but he does it, and he does it, and he works hard. He's done it for 20 years because that's where the Super Bowl comes from. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the key. I mean, I'll tell you, there's probably too many things to list of things that I don't like doing. I really don't,
because I knew there's always one that comes off the top of the head,
Yeah, I mean, I hate being in the office. That's one of the things I just don't like doing. I like to be out around people and doing all that. But the other thing is, the other thing I'm trying to think. Honestly, right now, man, I enjoy everything I'm doing. Except, but if I look back in the day, though, back in the day, I didn't like having to, let's say, ask for business when I was really selling. That was always something I didn't like doing, but I had to do.
Yeah.
Some people might see it and say, "Man, you're a natural at that." No, inside, man, you're like, "Man, I just don't want to feel like I'm desperate, like asking for business." I mean, what the heck? But actually, look, we are, man. We want to blow up, right? We want to blow up our business. We want to make as much money as possible. I am desperate for that. When I write my goals down, I'm desperate to achieve them. So that's one thing I didn't like, I think, back in the day. But right now, man, I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you, this is a good one here. About a year and a half ago, we had to switch companies out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
I switched companies, and I honestly did not like making minimum wage, which I did to build the business. We kept money in our business. I didn't like making minimum wage for 6 months and having to build from scratch to start over again,
Right.
and all that hard work. But I'll tell you what happened. So every month, it's like, are we going to get there? Are we going to get there? We keep putting all this effort in. We're doing all this research on different things to blow up our business, right? We kept grinding and grinding and grinding. So I don't like that grind, but we kept doing it. And then once you break through, which we've done in the last 4 or 5 months, we've had 4 record months in a row. Once you break through, now it's fun, man.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it now. The only thing now that I don't like is the fact that I'm not settling. It's not the type of person I am, and our people are on board with that. But we keep going to the next level, and that's the part that I would say now is like it's never enough kind of feeling. But you got to do it because you can't sit still. But that I don't like the grind. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? First of all, congratulations on the success, man. It's well deserved. You've obviously earned it. Me now as being, in your world, like I'm just going to be pulling for you. And I'm going to be there to help you. I mean, anything that we can do, 100% there to support you because I like people that are doing things the right way. I like people that have ambition. I know that you're not running over people in order to be successful. I know that about you. I've never understood. Those are always flash in the pan. It's never going to last.
Right.
Taking advantage of people, the power in the relationships. So, but you were willing to do it because you knew that was going to get you to the next level. I think complacency and comfort is dangerous as hell. And entitlement is even worse. We can come back to that. But in order to kind of really, I want to dig into your brain a little bit on how you manage time because I want to learn a little bit. I bet there's something you could teach me, but I also want our audience to learn because the number one thing that I was requested, it seemed like the most was time management this, time management that. What I realized is a lot of people either need a system, they need an assistant, but what they really needed was a reason and discipline more than the other stuff. They're always looking for the hacks, the little things. But there's some principles I came up with, and I kind of want to run a few of these by you, and I want you to just say true or false.
Let's go.
So first one, principle number 1, you cannot save time. True or false?
You cannot save time. False.
False.
Do you want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Save time. You cannot save time. So it's like a double negative when I say false, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can save time. You try to trick me.
No. In other words, the first principle in
the business that you're in, your tests have double negatives and trick questions.
All right, let's get this on tape. I don't create the test that y'all have to take. My job is to prepare you so you only have to take it once.
Okay.
Let's just get that clear. The testing company comes up with these questions that are psychology problems, all right? I don't do that. I prepare you for those. Let's get that straight.
Wait a minute. In your preparation courses, I'm sure you have quizzes then, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Tons.
You don't mix. No,
wait, it's the best thing. Listen, no, I know. This is my business. That's why it's so easy. I write and we create, my writers, my instructors, everybody, we create stuff that you might not like the way the question's worded. And I'll tell student Mike, you don't like the way this question's worded, but that's how it might be worded at the testing center. My job is for you to be prepared. So don't like it, but learn it anyway.
Yep. Right.
I do that all the time.
No, you don't have to explain yourself, man. You do a great job. I was just busting your chops.
I love it, dude. But you notice I want people to hear the right thing. Because there are people out there that fail the exam because they talk themselves into it. Then they miss out on all the success they could have with these businesses. You see me get up because I'm like, man, if that's the gatekeeper, like, come on, let's go. Yeah.
So to elaborate on that,
yeah, saving time.
I think you can save.
Let's look at it that way.
Save time. Here, let me tell you why.
Okay.
One of the things that I always do, and I've always been known for this all the way back into high school. My friend, my partner Chris Short will tell you that I've always been done tests faster than anyone, and my grades were always A's, all that jazz, because I was prepared. One, all right. Number two, I have a goal in mind of not taking my time because I want to get things done. So I was always taught to get things done right first and fast second. So I would get it right and fast as possible. Mm-hmm. So that was done all the way back to probably elementary school, but I always did that with everything I did because I don't want to spend more time. And I knew that I'd have a leg up on everyone if I could get done faster than them. So that's, as far as saving time goes, that's how I save time. I was going to talk about time blocking. People talk about time blocking, right?
Oh, yeah.
Don't time block. Activity block.
Okay.
Basically what I try to do is I try to get as much done in as fast as amount of time as possible. And that's the way I save time. So we all have the same amount of time in life, right? You heard that before? But you can gain time by doing things faster. And number two, buying time from other people. Mm-hmm. Which talking about assisting and building a team. So,
yeah, there's a lot of studies that have been done because we're human beings, right? And there's really smart people that have put the real science to this. And one of the things that I love talking about that I've discussed, and you probably have heard this before, is that there is definitely a theory that time will stretch to complete a task based on the time allotted to complete it. So what'll happen is people will make things take as long as you give them time to complete it. People
exactly
way underestimate the amount of stuff they can get done in a single day because they have their little list, 1, 2, 3, and they'll procrastinate and they'll watch YouTube and they'll waste time and they'll take a long lunch. When it's like, man, you could have 1, 2, 3 done by 8 a.m. Now let's go do some things to build the business, or go play 9 holes of golf because you earned it. And like have your mind, body, soul, and everything completely working together. So what are your thoughts on that? Because when you say activity blocking, I'm a big time blocker, but you kind of called me out. I really am an activity blocker. Like what we're doing right here is on my schedule. It's blocked out. Nothing else is going to happen because this is really important. It's got to get done.
Right. And this is a little different. I mean, we have certain topics and certain questions that you want to cover, right? So, but if you have a certain amount of calls to make, there's no saying that your call should take an X amount of time. Mm-hmm. You should do them as fast as possible. If you have, we have loans to work on, or some processors working on a loan, there's no set time that they need. They need to get that thing done as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. That's the goal that they should be thinking. And matter of fact, anything that you're in business for, where you get paid to do more of it, you should figure out a way to do it as fast as you can. Period. Right? So
right first, speed second.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes actually speed might be more important than just be mostly right.
No doubt. You know what?
Right?
Yeah. How about in lead conversion? One of the things that I learned and that I teach like crazy, I have a 3S system for lead conversion, but one of them is speed. Like if I'm a real estate agent, because I am a broker, and I'm all panicking, wanting to get my buyer financing so that I know that this house will close. I don't care if you got the best customer service or brand. I want the mortgage lender that answers me first. Is that not true?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes speed is more important, and then you could show them that you're also the best.
Yeah. So, like for example, if you've got to make calls and you're not on a script or something, and you don't know what to say, you're better off making the call first.
Yeah.
And doing that. So yeah, I mean, I learned that at a young age. Get it done right first, fast second. But as I've been in business, so what I've seen is you do have to have some speed there.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No, I'm agreeing with you actually. And we say around Donaldson, perfection is the enemy of progress, which means if you have to choose to be perfect or choose to progress, do it.
Yeah.
Launch it. Go forward. Take the next step. I mean, I learned video and YouTube as we were publishing them on the internet. Like I'm still learning. We're not going to be perfect.
Yep.
People do that all the time, man. They don't launch their business. Mm-hmm. They don't make the call because like, I don't have the perfect script.
Right.
I was talking, I don't know if you saw a recent episode of Office Hours. Make sure to link that, Art, when we put up the video. But Chris Smith, who wrote a book called The Conversion Code. And we were literally, half his book is about scripts on the phone.
Yeah.
And then, but I asked him, I said, yeah, but people get caught up in that. What if you're in hand-to-hand combat? What if you see somebody in person? What if they ask you a question you don't have a script for? He goes, well, dude, you just wing it. You build the relationship. Like, you can't have a script for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It helps and it will help you be more efficient. But if the choice is make the call with a perfect script, but it'll be tomorrow, and make the call today without the perfect script, make the call today.
Yep. And I think the best thing, like, for example, we call real estate agents, and touch base with them and trying to be consistent in front of them. And a lot of the guys are scared to make those calls. What's that?
So we're a pain in the neck. I know.
Nah, I love you guys, man. I love you guys. I live with one, remember?
Yeah, that's true. Good call.
But no, I think a lot of the calls don't get made. You're right, because they're worried about what to say. And if you just basically do it, and I call agents all the time sometimes, and I'm not even sure what to say just because we're so busy. Yeah. I get on the phone with them and I just ask them a question and let them talk and sit there. And sometimes it's good to just listen. So, I mean, I honestly, I'm not perfect, man. I go through the same thing right now. And this is how I learn and how I'm able to coach people. But, I want to do a podcast, right? I'm going to get a podcast up and going.
Awesome.
I don't know the first thing about doing that. Now, one of the reasons for coming on this show today is to help you with your audience, but also for me to learn.
Yeah.
And everything I do, I try to learn from. So I've been putting it off because I don't know about it. I can tell you that's one example for me that I need to work on is I should have just got online and figured this thing out by now. But I can, list all the excuses in the world because I wasn't ready. It wasn't perfect. I didn't know what I was doing, all this, but just get on there. Right.
Yeah, no doubt. First of all, I highly encourage that you do it. You can get better as you go. I think it's fun. And I think that for me, it's one of those where my anxiety goes up and I feel like I'm not accomplishing when I'm not putting content out there. Cause I know
the same thing,
value that's created, the things that it does in the world. And it's just, it helps me to know that I'm doing something that helps others. Cause this is an idea that's now an implementation. It's an execution. It's going to get better as it goes. So if I can help you, I will. But the first thing I will do is I will email you a link to let me Google that for you. And then I'll Google it for you. How do I start a podcast?
I'll tell you what, I haven't seen your early shows, but you do a great job, by the way. So I don't know if you were this good when you first started or not, but you do seem like a natural at it. But
I appreciate that. I think that
shows that I watched.
I appreciate that. I think that the when the intent is pure, the effort becomes easier. And so the intent's always been pure. Now, sounding better and looking better, I've obviously got an engineer to thank for that. I had to build up to that. I had to do it myself first. And so when I joke around about let me Google that for you, it's one of those things where that's where I had to live. I had to do research. I had to figure out like, okay, wait. So if I plug this mic in, where does it go? And how do I get this thing on the internet? And like, I had to figure those little things out. And every step was a learning thing. But one tip that I would give, not just a podcasting on anything, is every single day that I learn something that I know is an implementation for our business, I try to jot it down, write it down, type it up. So now it can be an investment that I can train somebody else. Look, I've already learned this step. Now I can teach it to you. And just one a day, you'll have a wisdom encyclopedia set, man.
I've been doing that with some other things. And you know what? I don't know if you fight with this or not. And this is for the audience to think about this. When you come up with something that you learn, right? And then you want to share it with other people, but sometimes I fight with it in my mind. Like, you know what? This is something everybody knows. Everybody knows this, but you forget that you got that from reading a book or from watching something or training on something. You forget where you got the information from. Other people aren't doing. So you think that it's like common knowledge, right? But then you don't share it out to the world because you think, oh, everybody. It's the same thing with mortgages. So here's an example. Does anybody know what DTI means or LTV or the terminology that
the language of finance is crazy. The stuff y'all put on those forms, man, it makes people's brains melt.
Right. Or does everybody know that you only need to put 10% down for a second home purchase, right? I know that, and I think everybody knows that. But a video, for example, on Facebook telling about that, most people don't know that. But we think everybody does because we do it every day. So same thing with content, man. I don't know if you fight with that sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And how to battle that probably is just to not think about it and just put it out, right?
Yeah, well, that's the perfection is the enemy of progress, man. Mike, I'm telling you, that changed everything for me. Some people think it's crazy, but I will put something up that's not yet even finished because I know that executing it and putting it out in the world will force me to finish it.
Right.
I've done that with courses. I've done that with podcasts. I've done that with videos. People don't understand. See, the artist in art, he'll sit on something for 2 months because it's not right. I will post it and then fix it after it's posted because now I know the world can see it. Sometimes that's the way to do it. And that's just a muscle that I've built over time. Look, I like to pay. We talk a little bit about golf, but that's a competitive outlet for me that I need. I love to play. Like next week, I'm going to play in the state mid-am at a really difficult golf course. The top golfers, like I'm preparing for this. I'm waking up super early to exercise, fitting in practice. Like it really matters to me. But you know what? I used to step in that arena when I was not a golfer that was capable of competing with those guys. But by putting myself in the arena, it forced me to get better.
Yep.
It forced me to put in the work. So whether it's golf, whether it's podcasting, whether it's sales, like the listing appointment, it doesn't matter what it is. You got to put yourself in the arena. It's the only way for you to improve. Because if you keep getting ready to get ready, you're never going to do it.
That was a good thing. That was a good thing about when we went to the 10X stages in Miami. We were in a room with some really good speakers, man. And if I would stay home in my town of Ocean City, Maryland, and just try to do my thing that I was doing here, I would never advance further than probably the best speaker that was in this market, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an example of when we went down there, you see other people that are doing it. And we had, what do we have? We had how many countries represented there? There was people from
at
Denmark,
least 6 or 7
Netherlands.
I can think of off the top of my head.
Right. So we weren't just talking about the good speakers in the country. We had some people that were international, man.
Leveling up.
And that helps you step up your game. So that's a good point, man.
Yeah, you know what? And I would say that to people. There's a lot of folks listening that either taking classes with me or seen YouTube videos or listen to my podcast. And you just mentioned it. One thing that I'd like to share with folks is notice that I'm still working on my craft. People pay me to sit in front of them and to communicate the things that I may have learned or that I can share with others. And I'm always trying to level up and get better. So anytime that you see me, I just want you to understand that I've worked on whatever I'm doing for a lot of time that you'll never see that leads to that result.
Yep.
And I'm not a finished product. I've put in my 10,000 hours, but now it's what's the next level. And so that's why I was there. And I've done this many times. This was the latest one. And I'm not going to stop because the moment I stop, like you said earlier, I'll become a depreciating asset. There's only two things an asset can do is appreciate or depreciate. It cannot stay stagnant. So I refuse to do that. And getting better is what's always at the top of mind for me. So, and you were doing the same, which by the way, you have no idea how much I tossed and turned over the fact that I lost a speaking competition in a group of 5 and almost tied for first and then lost to a guy whose English was his second language. It was killer for me.
I know. That's the thing that exercise wasn't the easiest. Telling your story in 30 seconds.
Right. Well, that's what's funny is because that's the new skill that I have to remind myself. I've spent so much time in the compliance land where I can take anything, Mike. Give me something and I can make it last 4 hours. It is a true talent. But now having to squeeze it in to 30 seconds or 5 minutes, that's something I've got to continue to work on. Like take something that's an hour and giving it to you in 30 seconds. Like, hey, that takes practice.
Absolutely.
So it's just another piece of the Swiss Army knife that I'm going to just keep on sharpening, man. And that was good for me. I secretly am glad that I finished second because I wouldn't want to have had, finished last in front of everybody. All these different things. So when we're thinking about time, like some of these other things, so saving time, we really got into time blocking. That's everything for me. I don't know about you, but it started with me like a red piece of paper I used to tape on the door with my staff because we had to, I wanted to redo our entire online platform, which meant a lot of time on a mic, a lot of time with a camera, redoing all this content online. And the only way I was going to do it was to be able to shut myself in that office and to do it for a certain period of time per day. And just a red piece of paper on the door, that meant Chris was recording. This is leave him alone. Everything else can wait. And every day, once I got that done, then I could get to everything else. So my system is, and I know you probably have a version of this because it works, is 1, 2, 3. Here's my system. This is how simple it has to be for somebody like me to implement it. Ones are the things that grow your business and the most critical task of the day. 2 means support activity and other things that are important to do, but do not build your business like 1. And 3 is everything else. And so my to-do list every day is put with a 1 or a 2 or a 3 next to each task. And I do not touch a 2 or even remotely think about a 3 until the 1s are done for that day. Right. That's how I do it. How do you do it?
Yeah, similar to that, except for the fact that there's some things that need to be done at some point.
Yeah,
deadlines. But you can't always make them 3s, right? Because what happens is that you never get them done. So the only thing that I do differently a little bit is if it's something that I really don't want to do, that I know needs to get done, I usually push that up into that priority section. It might usually be a 3 for you, but I would make it a 1 just because I got to get it done because you only got so much willpower and focus throughout your day, right? So as the day goes on, eventually it starts to wear off and you don't get that done. So what I'll do is I'll look at the end of the day, I always reflect and correct, man. I always like to review the day, see what I did get done, what I didn't. And then one of the things is if one of the things that I should have got done that day, whether it's a 2 or 3, I might bump that up to a 1 the next day just to knock it out quickly and get it over with. That that's a great system that you have there.
Well, I like it because I think that what's ambiguous there is what do I define as a 3? And so you've heard it described. I've heard people say like eat that frog, which is like the thing that has to get done. You don't want to do, put it first. Yeah. Get it out of the way, make that call, do that thing. For me, that could be anything. For you, like it could be paperwork, administrative stuff. Compliance is big in my business, just like it is in yours. But that's the engine behind what allows you to operate and grow. I think one of the things that I want to circle back to, but then also ask your opinion on, is that you made a really interesting point that twice now that we kind of riffed on at the beginning, which is I got to get over the fact that I think everybody knows this stuff, or that I'm saying something that everybody else has already said, or this, that, or the other. I'm not sure, just like you said, where I've heard this, but the word immersion comes to mind. And here's why. Because I think you're probably even better at this than I am. But I have immersed myself in books, in knowledge, in positivity, in research for so long that it is penetrating every cell in my body. And I literally can't remember what book or what piece of philosophy or what research paper. Yep. This is now my wisdom. And so mine is different than yours. And I owe it to the world to share the wisdom, because what you can connect just like I can is that these are things that literally saved my life and my business.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons we started this podcast, Mike, I think you can identify this, is because I wanted to try to peel back a couple more layers of the onion and get a little more personal with the world. Because there's things about me that we still have not talked about, that the podcast is supposed to be the avenue to where eventually that I can share those, that I know people will connect with. I always had a wall up because I was a 22-year-old kid running this big professional business. And I always just kind of wanted people to see me as the professional and didn't want to, have all these things as weakness or perceptions or
insecurities, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But the immersion is the word that comes to mind. In other words, you assume people know things about your time management system, but there are people out there that are going to hear this that I want to implement just one piece of what me and you do. Like, what do we have in common so far? We both wake up early. We both start the day with intention. We both have reasons. We both block things out, whether it's time or activities. I mean, look at all the parallels. Well, that means some of this might work.
Yeah, exactly.
There are people publishing books right now that are just restating in their own words what a philosopher said 1,000 years ago. They're still publishing that book because it's your take on it.
Yep.
It's your version of it.
Yep. And I needed to hear that. I'm writing a book right now as well. And I as I'm writing it, I fight with that. Like, man, people have already heard this before, but it's my take on it. So I got to keep reinforcing that in my brain. That's that little man trying to stop me from writing this book.
That's
right.
Exactly. So, dude, I was literally getting ready to say that shit is the little guy and not the positive guy. And you're letting him feed you a little bit there. I mean,
and look, as far as no matter how far in our journey we get as coaches or as trainers or whatever the case is, as far as we get, we still deal with it as well. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Like people like Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or Gary Vee, whatever, they still fight those little guys too, guys. I can tell you that for sure. But you don't think that always happens. You think that they're going on their mission without that, but they're definitely dealing with it as well.
Mike, look, there's no question. Everybody fights it. I mean, I think even the late, great Anthony Bourdain had a quote where he used to talk about that every day he's fighting that lazy person inside that just wants to smoke pot all day and watch old movies. And he said that traveling and being on TV and writing book every day he fought that instinct that this is the person he wanted to be because everybody has that in there. It's easy to push the lazy button. It's easy to push the excuse button. It's easy to push the complaint button. All of those are easy buttons. None of them is rewarding. None of them is fulfilling. None of them is going to serve you whatsoever. At least I've learned that. And so I think that's a great point, man. We all do. Like I've got things that I'm taking notes as you're writing. I'm learning from you. I started learning from you when we sat down and had dinner. We had known each other for 10 minutes. Right. And we're sitting there just because when you get around people that are thinking and looking and desiring this similar path, well, then that means you fought the same battles or you're fighting them or you may have a solution and so forth. Like as an example, something that I did, and I'm asking if you've ever done this, but I have this time tracking challenge with people that come to me and they're telling me that they're not getting stuff done or that they don't have time. You hear that all the time. Yeah. So I have this thing I call the 24-hour challenge. One day, 24 hours. All I want them to do is literally track every minute what they're doing for one 24-hour period. That's all I need is one. Almost everyone doesn't even get through it before they already know. The action of moving the pen on the paper is putting it in their face so that they can be accountable for how much Netflix they're actually watching, what time they're actually getting out of bed, how much time they are really spending prospecting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Have you ever done anything like that? Because I did it for myself, and that's why I share it with others. Have you ever done something like that, and what did it lead to?
Yeah, I call it time auditing or time inventory. So similar thing, right? Mm-hmm. And the most recent time was a lady that works with us, and she was just hectic. Like everything's hectic, and everything was just she was frazzled.
Yeah.
Just get a conversation on a phone call with her and just kind of say, listen, I don't agree with what you're saying. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to do to fix this. I have a solution. Right. And then I did the same exact thing you just said and immediately never had a problem with it again. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah. That works really well. It's just the same thing as dieting, right? You want to, MyFitnessPal, whatever they call, you can track what you eat. That's right. And you're like, man, I can't lose this weight, man. I got this belly. I can't figure this stuff out, man. What's going on? I feel like I'm eating good, right? And then you find out when you track it, right, that you had a candy bar or you had too much, whatever. Same thing, man. Yep, it works, 100%.
No question. I love it, man. I'm so glad to hear that you did that. And look, you helped with an employee. I've done the same thing because I'll have staff members that are like frazzled. They're anxious. They feel like they're not getting everything done in an 8-hour workday, which is so much time. And so why don't we just track what you're actually doing all day long? And then, of course, as leaders, we've probably evolved. I don't know if you have, but I certainly have. I've studied it. And there are people out there that have done really qualitative studies on what a person does during the course of an 8-hour workday and how little of it is actual work and how much of it is everything else. Procrastination, YouTube, you name it. And all that shares is that, hey, waste a little less time and cause yourself a little less anxiety. waste a lot less time, be a lot more productive, and ding, you'll be more valuable to your boss.
So true, man.
It's
So
easy.
true. Yep. And you mentioned something about the red sign on the door, the distraction. I really had to get into one of our guys here the other day because he had a question, and I'm like, dude, I'm doing what I'm preaching to you to do. So if I let you distract me right now from what I'm getting ready to do, I'm not doing you any favors, and I'm not being an example to you. So hold that question until I'm done my task that I'm trying to complete right now. And I felt like a jerk saying that, honestly. But then I thought to myself, nah, man, I got to be the example and do what I keep preaching to them to do. If I keep letting them interrupt me and I'm distracted all over the place from things and not accomplishing the tasks that I need to accomplish, it's not doing anybody any good. So that's the kind of stuff that,
practice
that time.
What you preach because it's important. But look, I've said this. Every time you say yes to somebody else, you're saying no to yourself.
Yep.
And so every single one of those look, we are here at my home studio where we do a lot of this recording. It used to be at our office. You can imagine why I moved it because there would be knocks on the door. There would be phone calls coming in. Everything's a crisis to everyone else, right?
Yep.
So one of the leadership lessons that I learned was it's really important to them, but they need to understand what the filter of an actual emergency is, right? Like somebody not being able to log into their account doesn't mean you come interrupt the podcast. I had to physically change the space to be able to get that done. Now, hopefully this isn't forever, but for now, this is what I had to do because you know what? Every time I'd say yes to somebody else, I'm saying no to myself. And guess what? I matter. And when I'm healthy and I'm accomplishing things, I'm able to do more for others. And so I think that's part of the leadership journey. So when we're talking about leading ourselves, the same thing is true. It's discipline. Give me one leadership lesson that you've learned from when you started managing other people that you had to learn along the way. Because the great John Maxwell, I read it in one of his books one time. Let me see if I can get this right. But basically, by being put in a leadership position, you're able to practice leadership because you have the title of manager. But people are actually leading who are making things happen and are adding value to others, right? So when you become a leader, we're not all trained leaders. Just like when we become a salesperson, we're not all trained salespeople. So what's one thing that you could share with others about managing a team of even just one or two or three that you didn't know that you know now?
Well, first of all, everybody thinks that if you're a leader or if you're in a position of authority that you're the boss, right? But you know as well as I do, and anybody that's been in this position, you're really not the boss, right? You have, instead of one boss at that point, now you have all your employees are your boss, right? That's how it works. So you're working when you get into that position, leading is serving. That's the biggest thing I can tell you is serving. And then, you do have to hold people accountable at times. And, I look at this more of not the mortgage business that we're in, but more of the people building business.
100%.
So being a leader, serving, and then helping build people. And what I mean by that is not obviously physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and professionally. So that's what I would talk about those. That's what I would talk about with leadership. So
I think that's so powerful and really important. And then the congruency is there. See, people will say, well, wait, you're supposed to be serving others, but then you're holding people accountable and you're being mean to them, which is not even correct, or, all of these things. And I tell people all the time, hold on, I'm serving them by sharing with them the importance of that activity, that attitude, not being correct, because if I tolerate it, it's going to be allowed to become acceptable culture here. And secondly, I know that that's not going to serve them outside of my organization if they choose to move on one day, if they end up somewhere else. It's my goal that every person is better served for the world, whether they stay with us or not. And so even if they don't like it, it's like dragging them through the coach that's bringing them through training camp, because ultimately they're going to be a better player on the other side. So that's how I serve them, because the alternative is not, right? I mean, that's just something.
And just because somebody gives you pushback or gets defensive, it's just like when you're learning sales and somebody gives you an objection, right?
Yeah.
And then you like shut down because they give you an objection. Most of
Right.
the time it's just a reactionary defense mechanism, I think
That's
it's
right.
called, right?
That's
So,
right.
but when you're holding people accountable and they get defensive or give you pushback, know that you're hitting a nerve or striking a chord there,
Sure.
and realize that, hey, this is a topic that we should be talking about. Because if it wasn't something that was hitting the nail on the head, they probably wouldn't get defensive about it. They would probably say, I'm not sure what you're talking about. They'd be confused more rather
Sure.
than defensive. So when somebody gets like that, don't stop holding people accountable just because you get pushback. And I can tell you that's something I'm really focusing on recently, and I'm seeing a big difference in people's productions and attitudes. People crave that stuff. You think you're being a jerk sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but people actually crave someone to hold them accountable. They just don't want to ask for it. And one other thing I'll say about leadership, a lot of people do not step up to lead or don't try to be a top producer on purpose. And I'll tell you why. Once you do that, you become watched. Everybody's got their eyes on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you step up to be a leader, you got to keep doing it. And people are scared to do that. And if you become a top producer, you're all of a sudden the attention's on you, and you got to keep doing that or you fall, right? And people don't want that. They're scared of that. So one of the things I've been focusing on with everybody is saying, listen, this is a way of life. Once you start leading, once you start producing, it's a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you keep shooting for the next level, and you're not worried about getting there one time and falling down. So that's something else I was just thinking about regarding leadership or top producing.
I love that. And I think that anybody listening, wherever you are, I guess we're talking about, because me and Mike, just at various stages of our company's journey, we're growing. We are growing into leaders ourselves. Our responsibilities, what we're doing is different. But you've got to understand that if you are a business of one, if you want to be recognized where you are as a leader, if you want that promotion, well, you can start leading now. Leaders are identified by the actions that they're taking before they're given the title. So,
right.
If you be, as an example, take action, take initiative, do things that you're not going to get necessarily credit for or paid for or whatever, because the long-term investment you're making in yourself or in your career is way more valuable. We could riff on that all day long. I mean, the transactional mindset versus the relationship mindset. We see that in sales like crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to run out of time because, geez, it's almost 4:30. So let's 4:30 our time, 5:30 your time.
Yeah.
Let's do one thing. This may not make it in a regular podcast, but I want to talk to my real estate agents directly for a second. What's one thing that you could share to real estate agents to help them monitor, navigate, understand, deal with the mortgage lending process and make their lives a little easier? Just quick context, because I know a lot of agents are rude. They don't understand. They call the lender every 5 minutes. The listing agents calling the lender when they shouldn't be doing that, when they have an agent on the other side. So just what's one piece of advice from somebody that's dealing with 30 originators, a big company, that would help ease the process from your side, and I guess relieve a little bit of the anxiety the real estate agents have?
Two things. One, look at every transaction as an opportunity to be on a team. Mm-hmm. So we like to talk about every party of the transaction being a teammate and working to get the deal to the table, mm-hmm. right? So many times there's finger pointing, blaming, this and that, and it just gets everything ruffled. And everybody should have each other's backs in the transaction. Now, obviously, the agents have to look out for their parties. However, if you look at the thing as far as, hey, let's do what's best for the client to get the deal to the table and leave any differences aside, that helps matters. And I can tell you that the transactions that go like that are ones where parties will want to work together again in the future.
Sure.
Now, it's a lot of times agents, not just agents, but there's a lot of lenders out there, mortgage people, that don't follow up and update all parties of the transaction regularly. Or if there's bad news that happens, they don't get right to it and tell the bad news. So agents, a lot of times, they got a bad rap because they demand that, and then loan officers don't do their job, and then they want to blame the agent. Oh, that agent's, they're such a jerk. They, this and that. When it's not the agent. First of all, everybody in general should take 100% responsibility for things, mm-hmm. right? No matter what's going on, it's on me. And that's the one thing I wake up every morning. I truly take that on. It's my fault. If something happens, it's my fault. What do I got to do to fix it? Now, I can tell you truthfully, when I first got into business, I was a real estate agent. I got into mortgages, started doing the purchase business of the lending side, and agents, there were some jerk agents. But you know what it really came down to? It wasn't their fault. It was my fault because I didn't know the game enough in the beginning. I was inexperienced, and they were demanding more from me. So if everybody would take that, one, be a leader in anything you're doing. Try to be a leader, okay, and doing things the right way. But take 100% responsibility and work as a team. And that's what I would offer out there.
I like it. So I would go back to, I bet you have a system on how you update the transactions of the agents that you're working with your organization, so that you are leading by telling them what they need to know on a regular basis, so they don't have to call you freaking out because you're keeping them in touch.
Exactly. Yeah. So good agents have a follow-up system where they're reaching out to all parties of the transaction, getting updates and all that, and staying. But if we can beat them to it and give them updates consistently, at least once a week, if not more, depending on what's going on with the transaction, that's a cure-all, man. I mean, really, keeping everybody, even when bad things happen where the appraisal comes in light or title issues or inspection issues, whatever the case is. If you communicate, I think it's communication, man. You got to communicate. Yeah. And if you do that, people appreciate it. And you still will have some jerks out there on the mortgage side and on the real estate side. That's just people in general, right?
Of course.
But if you do the job, dude, what does it come down to, man? Doing your job.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Sean Payton says, do your job.
There you go.
You're 1,000% right. I mean, I tell real estate agents in my training, I'm like, listen, the number one way to keep your seller from stressing you out is to keep your seller informed. And that includes even when there's not information to report. Your report is that there's no information to report.
Oh yeah. Here's something for you. If you don't have anything to say, you give an opportunity to call them, right? Yeah. And in sales, what are you supposed to be doing? Prospecting.
Bingo.
Right? So if you don't have any news to give them, you can say, hey, nothing's going on right now. Everything's on pace. So we're on pace to close on time. By the way, have you talked to anybody that's looking to buy or sell in the next 6 months? I'd love to help them. Love to give them some honest help just from anything I can do to help them. And that's an opportunity. But people don't think that way, man. And they need to, because their business would skyrocket if they did.
Funny things happens when you are genuinely interested in the other party gaining a proper advantage. When you are genuinely interested in the other party getting what they want, a funny thing happens, isn't it?
Yep.
Like when it's genuine, it's really strange how that seems to always come around.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, we have it in our training manual. I'll just give you this. We call it the no update. And it's really simple. In customer service, if Mike, my man C-Roc, is waiting on us to do research on your education record for mortgage 10 years ago, it might take our staff 2 or 3 days to be able to find that file, depending on how old it is. But they are trained every single day. Listen how powerful this is, to clear the deck, which means any customer that's waiting on something from you, update them every single day. Even if you don't have any news, that is the news. Because then Mike's not going to call you at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, go, hey, Wanda at Donaldson, where's my much and such? You get the email, you go, okay, good. Wanda didn't forget about me. She's working on it. It's a life changer. But I still have to constantly work on getting people to understand that. And so that's where time management systems, that's where tech tools, that's where all these things come in, because I can follow up, I can do it on a schedule, I can do it with intention. So one thing we didn't get to, which people always love, what's one tool, a tech tool, an app, something that you've discovered over time that's helped you be more productive in terms of managing your time?
I would tell you that one thing I'll bring up right now is the app called Daybook. It's a little brown.
Yeah,
it's a little brown app. I don't know if you can see. It's right where that circle is.
Yes, got it.
Okay, it's like a brown book. It's free. I don't know these people. I'm not, trying to give them a plug or anything, but it's worked for me. And it's so easy when you go into it. You saw it. You just push a plus button and you can journal. You can keep notes for yourself. I use it for actually writing the book that I'm writing. I'm actually writing a book right in here. That's awesome. I'm doing it bits and pieces at a time, writing goals down, even for this podcast, man, I mean, I write a couple topics down in there. I can refer back to it. I can share it. That's huge, man. This thing's been a game changer for me because I don't have to write it in a journal and then, maybe lose my journal. This saves.
Yeah.
If I lose my phone, I can pull it back up. That's I would say that's my biggest tool at this moment that I would mention.
Well, I know it's super important. Number one, because you're putting your book in there. And two, that is the one thing that you mentioned when we were in person in Miami. You showed me that and you were like, man, it's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I tell folks all the time, these phones, they're built like I've got mine sitting on here so I can record a stream or whatever on the desk while we're doing this. But these phones are designed to be a tool to assist you. They do what you tell them to do. So rather than letting this thing be the reason for your distraction, let it be the reason for your production, which means like for me, rather than having a physical planner and then a notebook and then calendars, this gives me one single source I can input and I have it everywhere. It's backed up, and so I think that's extremely valuable. For me, emails have always been the battle. It's like old school paperwork piling up, inboxes get crazy. I've got one that I've suggested a million times, but I'll suggest it to the audience one more time. It's called Boomerang. Boomerang, just like an Australian boomerang. And it's like most tech apps, up to a certain amount of usage, it's free. And then there's a fee if you use the hell out of it like I do, which is only like $12 a month or something. Mm-hmm. It literally allows me to do things like send later, follow up. It sends emails back as new emails when I tell them to. So as an example, you get that email about something that's 2 months away. You're like, gosh, I don't know if I'm going to that party. I don't know if I'm going to that event. And what does it do? It just works its way down your inbox. I just hit boomerang me this with a note in a month, which is still a month out. And then it's gone from my inbox, but then it'll come back so I don't forget.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I use that all the time to follow up with my staff. Like follow up with such and such rep that she did this. And the reason is if I told a customer we're going to do something for them, I'm going to follow up and make sure that was done for them, even if I'm not the end party executing the activity. So Boomerang has saved me. And I can tell you, it happens a lot. I'll email the staff and then they'll give me the update. And it's like, oh, you would have forgotten had I not had this tool. So I'm not perfect. There's a million things going on. So just like you, I've got to have all these little systems. But the one thing is, and I think you do as well, keep it really simple. I try to keep things in one place because when you start splitting things up, that's when you also have disasters.
Yeah.
Multiple planners, multiple notebooks, 13-day books instead of just one. Like simple really works. One CRM, not 8, right? Let's just use the one that we have and dump everything into it. I don't know, man. Just the simpler I can keep it, the more I can execute on it. That's just so I'm always trying to pare that down. I'm always working on it.
Yeah.
So look, Mike, we're just about out of time. I think that what I'd like to do, this has been awesome, by the way. I mean, there's so many things
I'm enjoying it, man.
Talked about, and I appreciate you being gracious with your time. I know there's a lot that you have to get to. You have a family. You've got your obligations there. Of course, our golf game is super important, our businesses. By the way, real quick, I just want to point out, because there's people that hear about golf and they'll all of a sudden hear, oh, yeah, they're always looking to not work or leave the office and all of this. And I'll remind you, that's a passion that we happen to share, but you guys have one as well. I'm a huge proponent of a balanced life, but if work is what you love, then you don't need to balance it. But also, I can tell you that the golf thing, I know it gets you outside. It's mental exercise. It's physical exercise. It's competition. And I've had a lot of business deals and relationships built through that game.
That's the key.
Yeah. It's a powerful piece of the formula for me. So those that are hearing that, I want you to understand that like me and Mike even had something we could talk about when we were strangers. If nothing else, we could have talked about our golf games. There's always things you can connect with people on.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
But listen, share with my audience where they can find you. You mentioned your Instagram, and tell them a little bit about Nations Lending, what states you're in, because agents listen to this from all over the country. And if they want to get in touch with you or one of your originators, one of your offices, where can they find y'all?
Okay, first of all, nationslending.com, and you can look up branches depending on what state you're in. Mm-hmm. We're licensed in, I believe, 47 states right now, so pretty much cover everyone. I'm located in Maryland and Delaware. We have 6 branches now, and we're working our way down into southeastern Florida actually as well, because I just like that area, and it's I think I would enjoy working down there and growing that region. So nationslending.com, but also on Facebook, you can find me at Mike C-Roc, Ciorrocco. I have a page on there.
All right, we'll put that up on the
there.
video. So Mike C-Roc, I like it.
Yeah, Instagram at Mike Ciorrocco, and LinkedIn, same thing. You can find me pretty easily if you just Google my name. I've made a point to make sure that's the case. But Nations Lending is a large company. We sell direct to Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie. All the stuff that I do, though, training, I never really talk about mortgages, but the business starts pouring in because we're just offering that assistance and that servant heart, by the way. So I'm only bringing this up because you asked. But great company, and the culture of our company, if there's any mortgage people listening, the culture of our company is unlike anything I've ever seen before, from underwriters to closing to marketing. They lift us up so much, and their primary goal, one, is to get the loans closed and serve our customers, but also for their employees. We have a slogan called Home Loans Made Human, and they live that out every single day, from the two owners all the way down. It's a phenomenal company, and I'm just so thankful every morning I wake up to be a part of this group of people.
That's awesome, man. No, 100%. And I'm glad that you brought it up. You should never, ever, ever be afraid to promote something that you believe in, which is the company where you are, that you helped build, and then you yourself. I think that's something that me and you have in common. I had to learn that. So all of you guys out there that are in sales or building your business, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in the product, if you believe in the service, you should never be afraid to promote it, because there's people out there, I promise you, C-Roc, if you will, that are going to want to build a relationship with you. They're going to want to work with you. And the only way they could do that is if they're aware of you. So I want people to check you out. Go be friends with them on Facebook. The same with me. Everybody knows christalks.com. It's the easiest place in the world to find everything that we're doing. For those of you that are listening or watching, I have a feeling, not to put C-Roc on the spot, but there may have to be a follow-up episode. So in order to do that, if you guys have a specific question about time management, about leadership, about sales, about anything that we covered, drop it in the comments on YouTube, drop it in the comments on our Facebook page. By the way, if you're not a member of the Office Hours Mastermind group on Facebook, you are missing out. So for all of you guys that are not familiar, you only have to do two things. One, go to christalks.com and sign up for the email list. I will show you how to handle an email list responsibly, because the only thing is send you things that matter to you. I never turn around and go for the ask, because the Office Hours community is all about adding value. And C-Roc, I'm going to tell you, the hardest thing to do for people are things that are free. It's harder for me to get people to take action on the podcast than it is to buy a product from me. It's really an amazing thing, which is why it matters to me. But secondly, when you're on the email list, you can then go to facebook.com/office hours live, facebook.com/office hours live. We will let you in to the mastermind group, and I'm personally invested in there. We have follow-up. We'll give you the show notes. I go live in that group. So if you've been listening to the podcast and you had to take advantage of that, make sure that you do that. But Mike, my brother, I really appreciate you giving us your time. You've been more than—
Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. And I look forward to a follow-up episode. If we get some specifics, we can just go straight Q&A and add as much value as possible.
Let's do it.
And also, of course, if there's anything I can do to help you with your podcast, with your book, as it all goes along, I want it publicly known that I will help you. So all you have to do is—
Thank you, man. Thank you. Number one, watch out. It's got some big things coming, guys.
100%. Thank you guys for listening or watching, and we'll catch you next time on Office Hours. All right, guys, it's your host, Chris Donaldson here. I want to thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Office Hours podcast. I know there was a lot of takeaways. Feel free to listen to this episode multiple times, rewind it, go back. That's the beauty of a podcast. You can just listen to it over and over again, take those notes, put them into action steps, and let me know which part of this episode you got the most value out of. It helps me understand what you want me to ask and where you want me to go with these conversations as I continue these interviews with influencers. This show is all about you, the Office Hours Army. This show is all about you reaching the success that you deserve. So in order for me to be able to do that, I need to hear from you guys. And so if you're new to the show, or even if you've been listening, I want to encourage you guys is make sure you go to my website at christalks.com and sign up for the email list if you haven't already. Because if you're signed up for the email list, you can then gain entry to the subscriber only Facebook group. I will be personally engaged in that group. So there'll be follow-up to episodes. There may be links that you can't get from the public production. I'll be doing Facebook Lives in the group to talk to you guys about the various episodes. So take advantage of the community, be a part of the Office Hours Army. And again, the best way to do that is to go to my website, christalks.com, join the email list, and then go over to Facebook, facebook.com/Office Hours Live. That's our Facebook group. Make sure that you request entry. There's no cost, and the community is going to be really ramping it up. So I hope to see you guys there, and I definitely hope to see you on the next episode of Office Hours.